The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Quinn Ellis adjusted the strap of her tote bag, her knuckles white against the leather. Her shift at St. Jude's Hospital had ended an hour ago, but the paperwork had kept her late. Now she was walking the 3 blocks to her apartment because her ancient Honda Civic had finally given up the ghost in the parking garage. She kept her head down, watching her boots splash through puddles that reflected the neon red of the open 24/7 sign from the bodega across the street. The city felt hostile tonight. The wind had teeth. She almost walked past the bus stop on 4th and Vine. It was a desolate concrete shell covered in graffiti tags that marked territory for the local street crews. But a flash of pink caught her eye. Quinn stopped. She squinted through the downpour. Sitting on the rusted metal bench, legs dangling a foot off the ground, was a child. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6. She was wearing a thin pink pajama set with cartoon rabbits on it. Her feet were bare, the skin pale and wrinkled from the water. She was soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her skull, shaking so violently her teeth were audible over the sound of the rain. Quinn's nurse instincts overrode her survival instincts. She rushed forward, dropping her bag. "Hey," Quinn said, her voice gentle but urgent. She knelt in the puddle, instantly soaking her scrubs. "Honey, can you hear me?" The girl looked up. Her eyes were a startling icy blue, too old for her face, filled with a terrifying vacancy. She didn't speak. She just clutched a waterproof tactical backpack to her chest like a shield. "Where are your parents?" Quinn stripped off her heavy wool coat and wrapped it around the girl's shivering frame. The child flinched, her muscles tensing like a coiled spring. "It's okay. I'm a nurse. I'm going to help you." The girl didn't speak. She just pushed the backpack toward Quinn. Quinn hesitated. The bag was heavy, military grade. She unzipped the main compartment. There were no toys, no snacks, just a thick envelope of cash and a black satellite phone. The phone rang. It was a jarring mechanical trill. The screen lit up. No number, just a name. "Papa." Quinn looked at the girl. "Is this your dad?" The girl nodded once, tears finally spilling over, mixing with the rain. Quinn took a breath. She hit the green button and put the phone to her ear. "Status," the voice said. It wasn't a greeting. It was a command. The voice was deep, baritone, and textured like gravel grinding under a heavy boot. It was the voice of a man who was used to absolute obedience. "Hello?" Quinn's voice trembled. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the air being sucked out of a room. "Who is this?" The voice dropped an octave. It wasn't angry yet. It was dangerous. "Where is Conrad?" "I don't know who Conrad is," Quinn said, shouting slightly over a clap of thunder. "I'm a nurse. I found a little girl at the bus stop on 4th and Vine. She's freezing. She's barely responsive." "Describe her." The command came sharp as a whip crack. "About 6, black hair, blue eyes. She's wearing rabbit pajamas." A sound came from the other end. A sharp inhale followed by the distinct metallic clack-clack of a slide being racked on a handgun. "Listen to me very carefully," the man said. His voice was terrifyingly calm now. "Do not hang up. Do not move. Do not let anyone else near her. Look at her. Is she bleeding?" "No, I don't think so. She's just shaking. I'm 3 minutes out. If you leave her, I will find you. If anything happens to her before I get there, I will find you." "Who are you?" Quinn whispered, fear finally spiking through her adrenaline. "I'm the monster under the bed," he said. "Stay put." The line went dead. Quinn stared at the phone. She looked down at the girl. "Who is your daddy, sweetheart?" The girl looked up, her blue eyes wide. "He's the king," she whispered. Quinn checked her watch. She huddled the girl, who said her name was Lila, under the shelter of the bus stop. The street was empty, but the atmosphere had shifted. The shadows seemed to stretch longer. Quinn had the distinct sensation of being watched. "We should go to the hospital," Quinn muttered, mostly to herself. "This is insane. I should call the police." "No police," Lila said suddenly. Her voice was surprisingly firm. Daddy said no police ever. Before Quinn could argue, the world exploded with light. 3 black Cadillac Escalades tore around the corner, ignoring the red light. They moved in a phalanx, aggressive and precise. They screeched to a halt in front of the bus stop, boxing Quinn in against the concrete wall. The doors flew open before the wheels stopped moving. 6 men poured out. They were giants dressed in dark suits that cost more than Quinn's tuition. They held assault rifles at the low ready, scanning the rooftops, the street corners, the alleyways. They moved with military efficiency. Then the rear door of the middle car opened. The man who stepped out didn't need a gun. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that was tailored to perfection, hugging broad shoulders and a lean, powerful torso. He had no umbrella, ignoring the rain that instantly darkened his expensive jacket. He was handsome in the way a storm is beautiful, devastating and sharp. High cheekbones, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes the exact same icy shade as Lila's. This was Ronan Voss, the head of the Voss syndicate, the man the papers called the Silencer. Quinn froze. She recognized him. Everyone in the city knew the face, even if they pretended not to. Ronan didn't look at Quinn. He looked straight at Lila. "Lila," he breathed. The mask of the cold killer cracked for a fraction of a second. "Daddy." Lila scrambled off the bench, the oversized wool coat falling off her shoulders. She ran to him. Ronan dropped to one knee on the wet asphalt, heedless of the mud. He caught her, burying his face in her wet hair. He held her tight, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other checking her limbs for injuries with rapid, practiced movements. "Did they hurt you?" he demanded, his voice rough. "Did Conrad hurt you?" "Conrad went to sleep," Lila sobbed. "He had red paint on his head. He wouldn't wake up." Ronan's jaw tightened. Conrad hadn't fallen asleep. Conrad, his head of security, had been executed, which meant there was a leak, a rat. Ronan stood up, lifting Lila effortlessly into his arms. He turned his gaze to Quinn. Quinn backed up until her back hit the graffiti-covered glass. I didn't touch her. I just found her." Ronan stepped closer. He towered over her, radiating heat and violence. He looked her up and down, analyzing her like a threat assessment. He saw the scrubs, the ID badge that said Quinn Ellis, RN, the trembling hands. "You called," he said. "Yes." "You waited." "Yes." He stepped closer, invading her personal space. He smelled of rain, expensive scotch, and gunpowder. "Why?" "Because she's a child," Quinn snapped, her temper flaring despite the fear. "And she was freezing. I don't care who you are. No one leaves a kid in the rain." Ronan stared at her. For a moment, she thought he might shoot her. Instead, his eyes narrowed. "Boss!" one of the guards shouted. "We got movement! East Alley!" A crack echoed through the night. The glass of the bus stop shelter shattered inches from Quinn's head. "Get down!" Ronan roared. He didn't dive for cover. He spun, shielding Lila with his body, and used his free hand to grab Quinn by the collar of her scrubs. He yanked her off her feet, throwing her toward the open door of the Escalade. "Get in." "I'm not going with—" Another bullet sparked off the pavement near her foot. "Get in the car, Quinn," he yelled, using her name like he owned it. She scrambled into the leather interior. Ronan dove in after her, slamming the door just as a hail of automatic fire chewed up the side of the vehicle. "Go!" Ronan barked at the driver. "Get us to the safe house now." The car surged forward, pinning Quinn to the seat. She looked at the man next to her. He was checking a pistol, his face set in a mask of pure rage. "Welcome to my world, nurse," Ronan muttered without looking at her. "Try not to die." The drive was a blur of high-speed turns and terrifying silence. Quinn sat pressed against the door, watching Ronan Voss. He was wiping the rain off Lila's face with a silk handkerchief, whispering things in Italian that sounded like prayers. The duality was dizzying. One minute he was a warlord barking orders to kill. The next he was a terrified father. They arrived at a gated estate 20 minutes later. It wasn't a house, it was a fortress. High walls, cameras, armed guards at the gate who nodded as the convoy swept through. The car stopped. The door opened. Out, Ronan commanded. I need to go home, Quinn said, her voice shaking but firm. You have your daughter. I did my good deed. Let me go. Ronan handed Lila to an older woman who had come running out of the house, a housekeeper named Rosa. Take her. Warm bath, hot cocoa, lock the wing. Once Lila was gone, Ronan turned the full weight of his attention to Quinn. The rain had stopped, but the storm was right in front of her. You can't go home, he said flatly. Excuse me? That is kidnapping. That is survival, he corrected. He walked toward her, forcing her to step back until she hit the side of the car. Conrad is dead. My daughter was dumped on a street corner as a message. Whoever did this knows my security protocols. They know my routines. He leaned in, placing a hand on the roof of the car next to her head, boxing her in. And now they know you. Quinn's heart hammered against her ribs. Me? I'm nobody. I'm a nurse. You're the woman who picked up the phone, Ronan said. They were watching that bus stop. They wanted me to come out so they could ambush me. You ruined their trap. You saw their faces. Or maybe they just saw yours. He pulled a phone from his pocket, her phone. He must have swiped it from her pocket in the car. I'm checking your digital footprint, he said, scrolling. Quinn Ellis, 27, single, no family in the state. Rent-controlled apartment on 8th. He looked up. If I let you go home, you will be dead by sunrise. They will torture you to find out what I said to you, what Lila said to you. Quinn felt the blood drain from her face. So what? I'm a prisoner? You're a guest, Ronan said. Until I find the rat in my organization and kill him, you stay here where I can see you. I have a job. I have a life. Your life is currently valued at 0 outside these gates, Ronan said coldly. Inside, it's protected by me. He turned and started walking toward the massive front doors. Ronan, she yelled. He stopped. He didn't turn around. Mr. Voss, he corrected. And Quinn? What? Thank you. He disappeared inside. Quinn stood in the driveway, surrounded by armed guards. She looked at the gate, then at the house. She realized with a sinking feeling that he was right. She had walked into the lion's den, and the only thing keeping the hyenas away was the lion himself. She walked up the steps. Inside the house was a museum of cold luxury, marble floors, dark wood, priceless art. But it felt empty. A man in a suit approached her. Mr. Voss requests your presence in the study, immediately. Quinn followed him down a long corridor. The study doors were open. Ronan was standing behind a massive mahogany desk, pouring an amber liquid into 2 glasses. He had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms covered in intricate tattoos, ink that told stories of violence and loyalty. Drink, he said, sliding a glass across the desk. I don't drink with criminals, Quinn said, crossing her arms. Ronan took a sip of his own, his eyes never leaving hers. You're feisty. I like that. It might keep you alive. He sat down, motioning to the chair opposite him. Sit. We need to go over the rules. Rules? Rule number 1, Ronan said, leaning forward, his eyes darkening. You do not leave the house. Rule number 2, you do not speak to the staff about anything personal. Rule number 3. He paused, his gaze dropping to her lips for a fleeting second before snapping back to her eyes. You stay away from me. I am not a good man, Quinn, and right now I'm a very angry man. You don't want to be in the blast radius. Quinn sat down slowly. She took the whiskey and downed it in one burning gulp. She slammed the glass down. Rule number 4, she countered, leaning forward to match his intensity. You don't treat me like a prisoner. I saved your daughter. You owe me. Ronan looked surprised. Then a corner of his mouth twitched upward, a smirk. It was terrifyingly attractive. I pay my debts, Quinn, he said softly, but be careful what you ask for. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors burst open. A man stormed in. He was younger than Ronan, flashier, with a gold tooth and a frantic energy. This was Lucian, Ronan's younger brother and underboss. Ronan, Lucian shouted, ignoring Quinn. We found the car. It was the Russians, or maybe the Irish. Conrad's body was in the trunk. Ronan's face went stone cold. The smirk vanished. And the nanny? Lucian hesitated. She's gone, missing. Ronan stood up. She's not missing. She sold us out. He looked at Quinn. The nanny was the only one who knew Lila's schedule. If she turned, then no one is safe. Ronan, Lucian said, eyeing Quinn suspiciously. Who is the girl? She's the new nanny, Ronan lied smoothly. Quinn's eyes widened. I am not... Ronan shot her a look that said play along or die. She's Lila's private nurse, Ronan corrected. She's staying in the East Wing. Lucian licked his lips, looking Quinn up and down with a greasy sort of hunger. Nice. Welcome to the family, sweetheart. Get out, Lucian. Lucian raised his hands in mock surrender and backed out. When the door closed, Ronan exhaled, dragging a hand down his face. He looked exhausted. Your brother, Quinn said. He looked at me like I was a steak. Lucian is a shark, Ronan said, but he's blood. He's the one, Quinn said. Ronan froze. What? The vibe, Quinn said, trusting her gut. I work in an ER. I see liars every day. Your brother. He wasn't surprised that Lila was taken. He was surprised she was back. Ronan walked over to her, his face inches from hers. Be very careful, Quinn. You are accusing my own blood of treason. In my world, you get your tongue cut out for that. In your world, your daughter almost died tonight, Quinn whispered. Maybe you need to look at who benefits if you're distracted. Ronan stared at her for a long, heavy silence. The tension between them was electric, fear, suspicion, and something undeniably physical. Go to your room, he whispered roughly, before I decide you know too much. Quinn turned to leave. At the door, she stopped. She was calling for you, you know, Quinn said softly. In the rain. She wasn't scared of the bad guys. She was scared you wouldn't come. Ronan didn't answer. He turned to the window, watching the rain. As Quinn walked down the hallway to the room the housekeeper had shown her earlier, she realized her hands were still shaking. She had survived the bus stop. She had survived the car chase. But as she recalled the dark, tormented look in Ronan Voss's eyes, she wondered if she would survive him. 3 days inside the Voss estate felt like 3 years. The house was a masterpiece of architecture, but it had the atmosphere of a mausoleum. The windows were bulletproof. The garden was patrolled by men with earpieces, and the silence was heavy enough to choke on. Quinn had fallen into a rhythm. By day, she stayed with Lila. The little girl was traumatized, prone to long bouts of silence and sudden violent nightmares. Quinn used her nursing training to keep the child grounded, checking her vitals, ensuring she ate, and mostly just listening. By night, Quinn lay awake in the guest suite, listening to the pacing of the guard outside her door. It was 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday when the screaming started. Quinn bolted upright. It was Lila. She didn't wait for permission. Quinn sprinted barefoot out of her room, down the marble hallway, past a startled guard who reached for his holster before recognizing her. She burst into Lila's room. Lila was thrashing in the bed, tangled in the silk sheets, burning up. No, no, don't take him, Lila shrieked, her eyes wide but unseeing. Quinn was at her side instantly. Lila, it's me. It's Quinn. She touched the girl's forehead. It was scorching, a fever spike, likely stress-induced. Get off her. The voice came from the doorway, a low, thunderous roar. Ronan was there. He was wearing nothing but black sweatpants, his chest bare, revealing a map of scars that crisscrossed his torso. Bullet wounds, knife slashes, burns. He looked like a fallen angel, terrifying and magnificent. He had a gun in his hand aimed at Quinn. She's burning up, Ronan. Put the gun down, Quinn yelled, not backing away. She grabbed a cool washcloth from the bedside table and pressed it to Lila's head. Ronan lowered the weapon, realizing the threat wasn't Quinn. He holstered the gun at the small of his back and rushed to the other side of the bed. Lila, he whispered, his voice breaking. He took the girl's tiny hand in his massive one. Daddy's here. The monsters are gone. They're not gone, Lila whimpered, her delirium mixing with reality. The man with the snake. He said he's coming for you. Ronan froze. He looked at Quinn, his eyes hard. What did she say? She's delirious, Ronan. She's talking about a nightmare. No, Ronan said darkly. We don't have snakes in my organization, but the Triad does. The Red Vipers. He stood up, pacing the room like a caged tiger. The nanny, she must have sold Lila's location to the Vipers. But why? They don't want money. They want territory. Ronan, stop, Quinn commanded. She stood up and walked over to him, placing a hand on his bare arm. His skin was hot, his muscles coiled tight as steel cables. She saw the storm in his eyes. She needs her father right now, not the dawn. Sit down, hold her, let me do my job. Ronan looked down at Quinn's hand on his arm. No one touched him. Not like this. Not without fear. He exhaled a long, shuddering breath. If she dies, she has a fever. She's not going to die, Quinn said softly. But you're going to scare her to death if you keep pacing like that. Ronan nodded stiffly. He sat on the edge of the bed. For the next 3 hours, the crime lord and the nurse worked in tandem. Quinn managed the fever with cool compresses and fluids. Ronan murmured stories of his childhood in Italy, his voice a low rumble that eventually lulled Lila back to sleep. By 5 a.m., the fever broke. Lila was sleeping peacefully. Quinn sank into the armchair in the corner, exhausted. Ronan walked over to the wet bar in the room and poured 2 waters. He handed one to her. You're good with her, Ronan said. The hostility was gone, replaced by a weary respect. She's a sweet kid. She shouldn't be going through this. She was born into it, Ronan said, taking a sip. He leaned against the wall, staring at his sleeping daughter. Her mother died in a car bomb meant for me when Lila was 2. I swore I'd protect her. And yet here we are. Maybe you can't protect her and be the king at the same time, Quinn said quietly. It was a dangerous thing to say, but the late hour made her brave. Ronan looked at her. His gaze wasn't angry. It was searching. He walked closer until he was standing right in front of her chair. He reached out, his rough knuckles grazing her cheek. And what would you have me do, Quinn? Retire? Open a bakery? He gave a dry, humorless chuckle. There is no retirement in this life. There is only the grave. There's always a choice, Quinn whispered. Her heart was pounding. The proximity of him was overwhelming. He was dangerous, violent, and morally bankrupt. But in this moment, in the dim light, he was devastatingly human. Not for me, Ronan murmured. His hand lingered on her face, his thumb tracing her lower lip. The air in the room grew thick, charged with a magnetic tension. He leaned in, his eyes dropping to her mouth. You should be afraid of me, Quinn. I am, she breathed. You don't look it. He was inches away. Quinn could feel his heat. She wanted him to close the gap. She wanted to know what the devil tasted like. Suddenly, the door swung open. It was Lucian. He was fully dressed, looking frantic. Ronan pulled back instantly, the mask of the dawn slamming back into place. Knock, Lucian, or lose the hand. Sorry, brother, Lucian said, his eyes darting between Ronan's bare chest and Quinn in her thin pajamas. A smirk played on his lips. Didn't realize I was interrupting. Situation report, Ronan barked, moving away from Quinn. We found the leak, Lucian said. It wasn't the nanny. Ronan went still. Who? Lucian pulled a bloody ID badge out of his pocket and tossed it on the table. Russo, your driver. We found him trying to skip town with a bag of diamonds. Quinn frowned. She remembered the driver from the pickup. He had looked terrified. Russo. Ronan frowned. Russo has been with me for 10 years. He took a bullet for me in Chicago. People change when the price is right, Lucian shrugged. I handled it. He won't be talking. You killed him? Ronan asked, his voice dangerously low. Without questioning him first? He pulled a gun. I had no choice. Ronan stared at his brother. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Quinn watched them. Something was wrong. Lucian was too eager, too jittery, and Ronan looked like a man who was watching a snake coil around his leg. Fine, Ronan said finally. Clean it up and double the guard on the perimeter. Already done, Lucian said. He winked at Quinn. Sleep tight, nurse. When he left, Ronan didn't move for a long time. You don't believe him, Quinn said. Ronan turned to her. His eyes were cold again. Go to sleep, Quinn. Forget what you saw. Forget what you felt. Ronan... Go! He snapped. Quinn fled the room, but her mind was racing. Lucian had said he found Russo with diamonds, but Quinn had seen the bag Lila came with. It was cash, not diamonds. Someone was lying, and in this house, lies were usually followed by bullets. 2 days later, the storm returned with a vengeance. The estate was in lockdown. The windows were shuttered against the gale force winds battering Seattle. The power flickered intermittently. Quinn was in the kitchen making tea. The staff had been sent home early by Lucian, citing the weather. It was just the guards, Ronan, Lucian, Lila, and Quinn. She felt uneasy. The house felt too empty. She was heading back up the stairs when the lights died completely, pitch black. Ronan, she called out. No answer, just the sound of rain hammering the roof, then a sound that froze her blood, the thip-thip of silenced gunfire. Quinn dropped her mug. It shattered on the marble. She didn't run to her room. She ran to Lila's. She burst into the child's room, empty. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced her chest. She spun around and ran toward Ronan's study. The hallway was dark, illuminated only by flashes of lightning. She saw bodies on the floor. Ronan's guards, dead. She reached the study door. It was ajar. Inside, illuminated by the dying embers of the fireplace, a nightmare was unfolding. Ronan was on his knees. His hands were zip-tied behind his back. Blood was pouring from a gash on his forehead, blinding one eye. Standing over him, holding a golden Desert Eagle pistol, was Lucian. And in the corner, tied to a chair with duct tape over her mouth, was Lila. Quinn stifled a scream, pressing her hand over her mouth. She hid behind a heavy velvet curtain near the door. Why, Lucian? Ronan asked. His voice was weak but defiant. I gave you everything. I made you a prince. You made me a shadow? Lucian spat, pacing the room. The great Ronan Voss, the silencer. I'm the one who does the dirty work, Ronan. I'm the one who cuts the throats while you play businessman in your suits. And for what? So you can leave the empire to her? He gestured the gun at Lila. A little girl. She is my blood, Ronan rasped. I am your blood, Lucian screamed. And I made a deal. The Vipers. They respect me. They offered me the city. All I have to do is hand over the keys. You're a fool, Ronan said calmly. The Vipers will kill you the moment I'm dead. Shut up. Lucian cracked the pistol across Ronan's face. Ronan groaned, slumping forward. Lucian raised the gun to the back of Ronan's head. Goodbye, brother. Quinn didn't think. She didn't calculate. She saw a heavy bronze bust of Julius Caesar on a pedestal next to her. She grabbed it with both hands. It was heavy, maybe 20 pounds. She stepped out from the curtain and screamed, Hey! Lucian spun around, surprised. What the... Quinn hurled the bust. It wasn't a perfect throw. It didn't hit his head. It smashed into his shoulder, the heavy bronze bone crushing against his clavicle. Lucian howled, the gun firing wildly into the ceiling as he staggered back, dropping the weapon. Run, Quinn! Ronan roared. But Quinn didn't run. She dove for the gun. Lucian, despite his shattered shoulder, was faster. He kicked her in the ribs. Quinn flew backward, crashing into the bookshelf. The air left her lungs in a painful wheeze. Lucian scrambled for the gun with his good hand. He raised it, aiming right at Quinn's chest. His eyes were manic. Stupid bitch! You should have stayed in the hospital. Click. Lucian pulled the trigger again. Click. The gun had jammed. The wild shot into the ceiling had caused a stovepipe malfunction. In that split second of Lucian's confusion, Ronan moved. Zip ties or not, Ronan Voss was a weapon. He launched himself from his knees, tackling Lucian at the waist. They crashed into the desk, shattering it. Ronan headbutted Lucian, once, twice. A sickening crunch echoed. Lucian fell back, dazed. Ronan rolled, positioning his bound hands behind him to grab a letter opener from the floor debris. He sawed at the plastic ties. The plastic bit into his wrists, drawing blood. But he didn't stop. Lucian was getting up. He pulled a switchblade from his boot. "I'm going to gut you, Ronan." Snap. The ties broke. Ronan stood up. He didn't look like a man anymore. He looked like death incarnate. He didn't reach for a weapon. He waited. Lucian lunged with the knife. Ronan caught his wrist midair. The sound of Lucian's wrist breaking was louder than the thunder. Lucian screamed. Ronan spun him around, grabbed him by the throat, and slammed him against the wall. "I loved you," Ronan whispered, his face inches from his brother's. "I loved you more than my own life." "Go to hell," Lucian gurgled, his face turning purple. "I'm already there," Ronan said. He twisted Lucian's neck. A sharp crack ended the rebellion. Lucian slid to the floor, lifeless. Silence returned to the room, broken only by Lila's muffled sobbing. Ronan stood over his brother's body for a moment, breathing heavily. Then he swayed. He collapsed to one knee, clutching his side. Quinn scrambled over to him. "Ronan!" She saw it then. During the tackle, Lucian had managed to graze him with the knife. But it wasn't just a graze. It was a deep puncture wound in the lower abdomen. He was losing blood fast. "Lila!" Ronan gasped. "Get Lila!" Quinn ran to the child, ripping the tape off and cutting her bonds. "Lila, listen to me. I need you to go hide in the bathroom. Lock the door. Put your headphones on. Can you do that?" Lila nodded, terrified but brave. She ran. Quinn returned to Ronan. She ripped his shirt open. The wound was bad. "We need a hospital," she said, applying pressure with the hem of her pajama top. "No," Ronan gritted out, grabbing her wrist. His hand was slick with blood. "No hospitals, the police, the Vipers. They'll be watching." "You're bleeding out." "Then fix me." He stared at her, his blue eyes beginning to glaze over. "You're a nurse. Fix me." "I don't have equipment. I need sutures, anesthesia, blood." "There's a med kit in the safe behind the painting," Ronan mumbled, his head lolling back. "Code 007. He passed out. Quinn looked at the man she was terrified of, the man she was falling for, the man who had just killed his own brother to save them. She stood up. She found the safe. She found the kit. It was a military field trauma kit. Needles, thread, morphine. She dragged Ronan to the rug in front of the fire. She tore the rest of his shirt off. "Okay, boss," she whispered, her hands shaking as she threaded the needle. "Don't you dare die on me." Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, Quinn began to sew the devil back together. The bleeding stopped at 4:30 a.m. Quinn sat back on her heels, wiping sweat from her forehead with a bloody forearm. The study smelled of copper, antiseptic, and wood smoke from the dying fire. Ronan lay on the Persian rug, his chest rising and falling in a shallow, rhythmic cadence. He was pale, the tattoos on his skin standing out starkly against the loss of color, but the stitches were holding. She had sewn him up with hands that trembled only when she wasn't touching him. She checked his pulse, weak but steady. "You're too stubborn to die," she whispered, brushing a strand of damp hair off his forehead. "It's a prerequisite for the job," Ronan rasped. Quinn jumped. His eyes were open, slits of blue ice watching her. "Don't talk," she ordered, her nurse voice returning. "You lost a pint of blood. Maybe more." Lucian nicked the artery. "But I tied it off." Ronan tried to sit up and groaned, his face twisting in agony. He slumped back. "Lucian? He's dead. Ronan, you killed him." Ronan closed his eyes. A single muscle feathered in his jaw. There were no tears. Men like Ronan Voss didn't weep for traitors, but the grief was a physical weight in the room. He signaled them before he died. "Who?" "The Red Vipers. The Triad," Ronan said, forcing his eyes open. "Lucian was their ticket inside. If he's dead, they won't wait for an invitation. They'll come to take the territory by force. They'll come to finish what Conrad started." He grabbed Quinn's hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. "You need to take Lila. There's a tunnel in the wine cellar. It leads to the boathouse. Take the boat. Go north." "And leave you here?" Quinn asked, incredulous. "You can't even stand." "I can hold a gun," Ronan growled. "I'll buy you time." "No, Ronan. This isn't a debate. These men will skin you alive. I am not leaving you," Quinn shouted, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. She shocked herself with the ferocity of it. "I saved your daughter. I saved your life. I am invested, Ronan. I'm not running away while you bleed out on a rug." Ronan stared at her. For the first time, he looked at her not as a civilian, not as a liability, but as an equal. He saw the fire in her eyes, the blood on her clothes that belonged to him. "You're insane," he whispered. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You would have made a terrible nun." "Good thing I'm a nurse," she said. "Now can you stand?" "Help me up." She wedged her shoulder under his arm. He was heavy, dead weight, but she gritted her teeth and heaved. They managed to get him to the leather armchair facing the door. Ronan checked the magazine of the Desert Eagle he had taken from Lucian. 3 rounds, he muttered. "Not enough." "There's more," Quinn said. She walked over to the shattered remains of the desk and pulled a submachine gun from under the debris. She had seen the guards carrying them. It was heavy, cold, and terrifying. She handed it to him. "Safety is here," Ronan said, showing her the switch. "Point, squeeze. Don't close your eyes." "I know how to shoot," Quinn lied. She had gone to a range once on a date. She hit the paper target twice out of 50 shots. "They're here," Ronan said suddenly. He didn't need to look out the window. The sound of the front gate exploding, a dull, concussive thump shook the floorboards. "Get Mia," Ronan commanded. "Bring her here. We make our stand in this room." Quinn ran. She retrieved Lila from the bathroom. The little girl was wearing her headphones, listening to classical music, clutching a stuffed bear. She looked at Quinn's bloody clothes and didn't ask questions. She just took Quinn's hand. They returned to the study. Ronan had dragged himself behind the overturned heavy oak desk, creating a barricade. He motioned for them to get behind him. The lights in the hallway flickered and died. The emergency generator hummed to life, bathing the house in a dim red emergency light. It looked like the inside of a heartbeat. Steps echoed on the marble stairs. Heavy boots, many of them. "Ronan Voss," a voice called out. It was a slithering, mocking tenor. "Come out, little king. Your brother says hello from hell." Ronan rested the barrel of the submachine gun on the top of the desk. "Quinn," he said, his voice low and steady. "Cover Lila's ears." Quinn pulled the girl into her lap, pressing Lila's face into her chest, and covered her ears with her hands. "Come and get it, Kane," Ronan roared. The double doors of the study were kicked open. The world dissolved into noise. Ronan opened fire. The submachine gun spat tongues of flame, lighting up the dark room. 3 men in tactical gear dropped in the doorway, their vests unable to stop the close-range barrage. Bullets chewed up the oak desk, sending splinters flying like shrapnel. A vase shattered. A bullet whizzed past Quinn's ear, close enough to feel the heat. "Reloading!" Ronan yelled. He dropped the magazine and slammed a fresh one in. His movements were slower than usual, pain etched on his face with every motion. Kane walked in. He wasn't wearing tactical gear. He was wearing a white suit, untouched by the rain or blood. He stepped over the bodies of his own men. "Look at you," Kane sneered, staying out of the line of fire behind a marble pillar. The great silencer hiding behind furniture like a rat. "I'm not hiding," Ronan gritted out. "I'm waiting for a clear shot." "You're bleeding, Ronan. I can smell it." Kane signaled to his men. "Flank him, grenade." Quinn saw the metal sphere roll across the floor. "Move!" Ronan screamed. He didn't dive away. He threw himself over Quinn and Lila. The grenade went off. It was a flashbang, not a frag. A blinding white light seared their retinas, followed by a deafening bang that scrambled their equilibrium. Quinn screamed, her ears ringing with a high-pitched whine. She couldn't see. She could only feel Ronan's heavy weight pressing her into the floor. Then the weight was gone. "Key, get off him!" Quinn shrieked, her vision returning in blurry spots. 2 men had grabbed Ronan. They were kicking him, targeting his wound. Ronan was fighting back, snarling like a wounded animal, but he was too weak. Kane stood over him, pressing a boot onto Ronan's stitched abdomen. Ronan cried out, a sound Quinn had never heard him make. "Don't touch him!" Lila screamed. The little girl broke free from Quinn's grip and threw her teddy bear at Kane. Kane laughed. He backhanded Lila, sending her sprawling across the floor. That was the moment Quinn Ellis ceased to be a nurse. She saw the gun, Ronan's Desert Eagle. It had skittered across the floor during the scuffle. It was 5 feet away. She didn't think about the Hippocratic Oath. She didn't think about the consequences. She thought about the little girl on the floor and the man bleeding under a boot. Quinn lunged. She grabbed the heavy gold pistol. It felt like Judgment Day in her hand. Kane turned, smiling. "Look at the little—" Quinn pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly broke her wrist. The gun roared. Kane stopped speaking. He looked down at his chest. A red flower was blooming on his white suit, right over his heart. He looked at Quinn, his expression one of pure confusion. "You're a nurse," he gurgled. "I'm the mother," Quinn said, her voice cold steel. She fired again, and again until the slide clicked back empty. Kane fell backward, dead before he hit the ground. The other 2 men froze. They looked at their dead leader. They looked at the woman with the smoking gun and the eyes of a fury. They looked at Ronan, who was pulling a knife from his boot despite his agony. They dropped their weapons and ran. Quinn didn't lower the gun. She stood there, chest heaving, until the sound of their retreating footsteps faded. Only then did she drop the weapon. She fell to her knees, shaking violently. Ronan crawled over to her. He didn't check his wound. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck. He held her so tight it hurt, rocking her back and forth. "You're okay?" he whispered fiercely into her skin. "I've got you. I've got you." Lila crawled over, sobbing. Ronan opened his arm and pulled her in, creating a circle of blood and survival. "I shot him," Quinn whispered, staring at her hands. "I killed him." "You saved us," Ronan said, pulling back to look her in the eyes. He wiped a smudge of gunpowder from her cheek with his thumb. "You are the only reason we are breathing. Do you hear me? You are the queen of this house now." The sirens began to wail in the distance. Real police this time, or maybe more cleanup crews. "We have to go," Ronan said, wincing as he stood up, pulling Quinn with him. "The war's over, but we need to vanish." Quinn looked at the ruins of the study. Her old life, the hospital, the rent-controlled apartment, the morality, lay buried under the rubble. She took Ronan's hand. "Where are we going?" Ronan looked at her with a devotion that bordered on worship. "Anywhere you want." 6 months later, the Amalfi Coast was bathed in golden sunlight. The sea was a shade of blue that looked painted on. Quinn stood on the terrace of a cliffside villa holding a glass of white wine. She was wearing a dress that cost more than her old car. Silk, emerald green, backless. She wasn't Quinn Ellis RN anymore, not on paper. "Everything is set for the gala tonight," a voice said behind her. Quinn turned. Ronan was leaning against the archway. He looked healthier than she had ever seen him. The scars on his torso were healed, though they would always mark him. He wore a tuxedo with the casual ease of a man who owned the world. "Are the donors ready?" "The mayor is terrified. The governor is eager, and the chief of police is paid," Ronan said, walking over to her. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "The charity foundation is legit, Quinn. Just like you wanted. We build hospitals. We help kids." "And the other business?" Quinn asked quietly. "Managed from a distance, with no blood on our doorstep." It was a compromise. Ronan couldn't leave the life completely. Power abhors a vacuum, and if he stepped down, war would start again. So he ruled from the shadows, a ghost king enforcing peace through fear while Quinn built the light. "Where's Lila?" "Writing lesson with the new security team." Ronan kissed her neck. "She's happy. She laughs now. She asked me yesterday if she could call you Mom." Quinn's breath hitched. She turned in his arms to face him. "What did you say?" "I said she'd have to ask you." Ronan reached into his pocket. He pulled out a ring. It wasn't a diamond, it was a sapphire, dark and deep as the ocean, surrounded by black diamonds. "I told you once that I'm a monster," Ronan said softly. "I'm still a monster, Quinn. I have blood on my hands that will never wash off. But you walked into the dark and you didn't run. You lit a match." He got down on one knee. "Marry me," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a plea and a promise. "Be the queen. Be the only thing in this world I answer to." Quinn looked at the ring. She thought about the rain in Seattle, the bus stop, the gun in her hand, the fear. She also thought about the way he looked at Lila, the way he held her when she had nightmares about the shooting, the way he loved her completely, terrifyingly. She realized she didn't want the safe life. She didn't want the sterile hospital lights. She wanted the storm. "Yes," Quinn whispered. Ronan slipped the ring on her finger. He stood up and kissed her, a deep, consuming kiss that tasted of wine and forever. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too, boss," she teased. Ronan laughed. He picked her up, spinning her around as the sun set over the Mediterranean. Far below, the waves crashed against the rocks, wild and dangerous. But up here, in the fortress they had built together, everything was perfect. The phone in Ronan's pocket rang. He ignored it. "Aren't you going to get that?" Quinn asked. "Let it ring," Ronan said, carrying her toward the bedroom. "The world can burn for all I care. I have everything I need right here." And that, my friends, is the story of the Midnight Call. It's a reminder that sometimes the wrong turn leads to the right destination. Quinn went out to save a child and ended up saving a king, and herself. They say love is patient and kind. But sometimes love is a getaway car, a loaded gun, and a promise made in the rain. If this story had your heart racing, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button. It tells the algorithm you want more thrillers like this. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join the family, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. I've got a rumor about a bodyguard and a princess for the next video that you do not want to miss. Drop a comment below. If you found a burner phone with a Mafia boss on the other end, would you have answered it? Let me know. Until next time, stay safe and watch out for the shadows.